One of the big things is deciding what to do with Christian Walker and Isaac Paredes. Paredes has been brought up in a bunch of rumors, trade rumors with the Red Sox. You know, you really don't want to give up Isaac. I mean, he's the perfect guy what we want in this offense, a guy that takes pitches, makes the pitcher work. But he's making 9 mil, which is a lot less than Christian Walker, and he played a lot better than Christian Walker, which means a lot more teams want Isaac Paredes. The Red Sox want Isaac Paredes for the exact same reasons we want him: short porch and left field. The big thing about the Isaac Paredes trade is that the Astros are asking for young, controllable pitchers, specifically their top two pitching prospects, being Connerly Early and Peyton Toley. Early was a 2023 fifth-round pick who had a lot better success this year in the majors, but doesn't have nearly as good a stuff as Peyton Toley, who was a 2024 second-round pick, who did struggle more this year in the majors. Early had a 2.33 ERA in 19 innings with 29 Ks and a 1.09 whip, and Toley had a 6.06 ERA in 16.1 innings, 19 Ks, 1.59 whip. In the minor leagues, though, this year, Peyton Toley, both struck about around 130 batters. Toley did it in around 10 less innings. He's a guy that projects more to be better in the future. They're both 23 years old, but Early has been in professional baseball longer. He has more experience. The only thing about this is that you're asking the Red Sox to give up 6 years of control of these top prospect arms for 2 years of Paredes. They're not going to do that, I don't think, unless they lose out on Alex Bregman. So that's a big piece of this puzzle. And I don't think you make this Paredes trade unless you get one of those two guys, because Paredes is obviously a great player. Now, like we said, the Red Sox would have to lose out on Bregman. I think they'd have to lose out on Cody Bellinger too. Those are two guys. I mean, Bregman obviously was there last year. They loved him. They loved his leadership. He performed really well there in Boston. Bellinger's another one. I don't think. I mean, Bellinger's value comes a lot more with the defense compared to Paredes. I think Bellinger had a better year last year hitting also, but he's a little bit of a Yankee Stadium merchant. I don't think he would perform nearly as well there in Boston because of that long right field. But I think Boston prefers that versatility where he can play first base in the outfield. Now, with Paredes, let's say they do lose out on Bregman and they don't get Bellinger. The next best option is Eugenio Suarez. And I think at that point, the Red Sox would prefer to go after Paredes because Suarez, you have to pay him about probably like $20 million based on 15 to 20 million in the year he just had. Paredes is getting estimated $9 million in arbitration this year. That would be cheaper, and you put him in that ballpark, he's going to do what Bregman did. He's going to have around an 850 OPS. He's going to play average defense, and he has 2 more years of cheap labor. Now, if the Astros can get Early or Toil in a trade, I think it's a trade worth making. It's tough giving up Paredes, but this team is desperate for young, controllable pitchers, especially because you don't have at-bats for all these guys. Let's say you do keep Paredes and you keep Walker. Well, now you have one of those guys not getting consistent at-bats. Let's say you bench Paredes. Well, he was your second best hitter last year. You don't want that guy on the bench. Let's say you bench Walker. Well, Walker's making 20 mil, and in the second half, he had a 799 OPS, which was higher than both Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa. Another issue is if you trade Walker, Isaac moves to first base. Correa's going to play third, Payne's going to play short. Espada came out and said the plan is to play Jose Altuve at second base. We all know Altuve's defense is horrible at second, or anywhere you put him, but at second base specifically, he's horrible. Paredes does not have any range if you put him at third or first. The big thing about Walker is that he can kind of cover Jose a little bit with his great range at first. Dana Brown and Joe Espada are big on defense. They want great defense. They value defense. You put Walker and Altuve out there on the right side of the infield, you're lacking. You're lacking bad. I mean, you put Paredes and Jose out there, you're lacking pretty bad. You put Walker out there with Altuve, you can kind of cover him up a little bit with that range. Also, it's going to be pretty hard to get rid of Christian Walker. He struggled last year. Overall, obviously, was better in the second half, like we mentioned. But he's making $20 million for the next 2 years. And going into his 35-year-old season next year. I mean, the only way you get rid of Christian Walker is a desperation move from a different team. I think you look at a team like the Mets, who are David Stearns has came out and said that he's looking for run prevention team. So he's looking for defense. Christian Walker fits that mold. But they did sign Jorge Polanco, who we know is not a good defender. So I think you could dangle Christian Walker in a trade with the Mets. Now, the problem with that is it would have to be a salary swap. There's no way someone takes Christian Walker just to have him. It would probably have to be a salary swap. Two candidates there for the Mets are Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea. Because if the Astros are making that swap, then obviously you want a pitcher to not recreate the gem that you have right now. I don't think any of those trades work, as Kodai Senga had a really good year last year, threw about 116 innings with a 3.03 ERA or low 3 ERA. 2 years left at 15 mil with a club option in 2028. There's no way that would ever happen, right? And the other option, Sean Manaea, also has 2 years left on his deal like Walker, but Manaea's making $25 million in those 2 years, and he was a lot worse as a starting pitcher than Christian Walker was as a first baseman. So why would the Astros want that? And he was dealing with injury problems due to his new arm slot. So I think it is more likely that Paredes is the one we end up seeing go, because I doubt they just get rid of Walker like in a Jose Abreu situation. I don't see Walker getting down to that level of production. It's a tough read on Walker because obviously he performed better in the second half. And last year, I know Walker was dealing with some personal stuff. His wife was pregnant. He just moved to Houston, obviously from Arizona. He was probably dealing with all that stuff mentally, and he was obviously going through those struggles, which is making him frustrated. He wanted to be good for his new team. So, I wonder, second half, we kind of saw all those things kind of settle themselves out, and he was able to play more free, and he had that basically 800 OPS. That was better than, your two studs, your two faces, right? So it's interesting because Isak on the year had an 809 OPS with average to below average defense at third base. Walker had, let's say you get second half Walker for a full year. So 799 OPS. It's a 10% drop off in OPS. So if Isak Correa stays on this team, he's going to play first base because Correa has third and there's nowhere else Isak's going to play. I don't think they want him at second base treated because of that hamstring. And they tried him last year in spring training and they shut that down immediately. So realistically, you have to start looking at it like it's more likely that Walker would stay. And who knows, it might not be as bad of a thing, especially if we are able to get second half Walker. And, like we mentioned before, that defense with Walker kind of helps Altuve. You're kind of able to hide him a little bit, especially also you have Pena at short. So anything to do his right, you got Pena to kind of help him out with the range. Anything to his left, you got Walker to help him out. And obviously Paredes is the big trade piece. He can get you one of those guys from the Red Sox. Another big part of this is the outfield problems. Jake Myers is still on this team. Jesus Sanchez is still on this team. Sanchez was horrible last year, and the defense declined for some reason. He just didn't do anything well. He didn't hit well. He struck out a lot. He wasn't taking his walks. He was playing horrible defense, which was not a problem in Miami. And at the time, that's a trade you look at, you're like, oh, you think it's going to be a good trade. You had 2.5 years of control left in him, and he was above an 800 OPS against right-handed pitchers. You're thinking this is a guy you can platoon, put him in against only righties, and it just didn't work out. He still has 2 years of control. He still hits the crap out of the baseball. That's someone you want to give another shot. Jake Myers, I mean, I think he has to get traded because he just had a career year. He had not shown anything near this with the bat in his previous time here. 2 years of control. This is a prime time to trade him. There was talk about him getting possibly moved for being in discussions with the Royals for potentially Cole Ragans or Chris Bubich. I think Bubich is the more likely one if that happens, with Bubich only having 1 year of control left and having injury issues in the past. Although Bubich has performed better these last 2 years than Ragans, I don't think they'd trade for Myers. It's not even close. The only problem is going back to the Red Sox. They're trying to get rid of Jarren Duran. They've been big in talks with the Royals about one of those starting pitchers as well. Jarren Duran is a far more valuable trade asset than Jake Myers. Now, Jake Myers' probably only destination at this current moment is the Royals, as another team that was in talks for Jake Myers was the Pirates. The Pirates already traded for their outfielders. They got the passwords from the Red Sox. They got Brandon Lau. They got Ryan O'Hearn. They're not looking at Jake Myers anymore. Another team that was mentioned long time ago in the offseason was the Dodgers. And I think the Dodgers are interesting because they have yet to sign an outfielder. And we know that they have a big outfield hole, not really a hole, but a corner outfield spot they would like to address. Jake Myers was mentioned for them, and the only problem with that is that they're in for Kyle Tucker. If they don't get Kyle Tucker and Kyle Tucker goes to the Blue Jays, I think that market opens up for Jake Myers. So now you can create a little mini bidding war with the Royals. Well, maybe we would call it a bidding war for Jake Myers with the Royals and the Dodgers. Jake had no power last year, which was something that, you know, in previous years he had shown a little bit of hope with the power. This year, he just went completely away with the power, started hitting just singles machine with the lead defense, and you take that, right? But the injury is a little scary. He had that calf injury, right? And then he came back, and before the game even started, he was hurt again. I mean, he went out for warm-ups pregame, and it was over like that. He was gone for another, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, month? So you kind of worry, like, well, Jake's big value comes with the defense. And the injury he had this year was on his legs. I mean, that's obviously in the outfield. It's a big part of his defense. But I mean, I think one way or another, Jake has to go. And obviously, you prefer to get him for a starting pitcher. But if you look at the Dodgers, they have a plethora of pitchers, and they have all their big guys already signed on big deals. So I think if they don't get Kyle Tucker, you could look at them for one of their young guys. It could be a good possible trade candidate, trade uh, partnership there with the Dodgers. I don't think the Royals are going to work unless Jarren Duran doesn't go there. Because if you're dangling Jarren Duran and Jake Myers, Jarren Duran's going to get the big fish 100 times out of 100. And also, you want to make sure that you have playing time for Cam Smith and Zach Cole. Now, I know that Dana Brown came out and said that Cam Smith is going to be fighting for his job this year. But this is a guy they've spoken so highly of, and he brings a lot of value. Dana Brown has always talked about how they like defense. Cam Smith was up for a Gold Glove last year, and the Gold Glove isn't as prestigious as it was before, but he had a really good season. You know, we look at the advanced metrics, OA and DRS really like him. He was really good out there. The arm is really good. He's still learning how to play the position. You know, he still needs to work on hitting his cutoff mans and those little intricate details. But he's really good out there, really athletic. Kind of reminds you of when Fernando Tatis moved to the outfield, although Tatis had some more success over there. And Zach Cole. Zach Cole's the guy that they fell in love with this year. They being Dana Brown and Joe Espada. They obviously have confidence in his defense. They had him playing in center field for some games up in the big leagues, and they had him playing in center down in the minors. And also, don't forget, I think Cam Smith could also be a candidate in center field. Earlier in the year, they were trying him out pre-game, getting him some reps in center field. That was before Jake really took off. I think they were really, really looking at getting rid of Jake and putting Cam Smith in center. But those are two guys you want to get at bats, full-time at bats, either one way or another. If you can't find those at bats in the big leagues and they're going to get sent down and get full-time at bats. Those are guys that you feel can be part of your core in the future. So that's why it's pretty important that Jake Myers gets inevitably traded, because you're looking at it right now. Okay, let's just say Isak and Christian Walker both stay. Walker, let's just say Walker at first, Altuve at second, Pena at short, Correa at third, Jordan DH, Sanchez in left, Cole in center, and Smith in right. You leave out Isak Paredes, right? So then you would be rotating him in Walker, Altuve, Jordan. You don't want that. You don't want to minimize at bats for your top players. So you prefer to get, and you could just put Alvarez in left, get rid of Sanchez, right? But if Sanchez is here, I'd assume you want to give him at bats. There's just too many guys that need too many at bats. I mean, Paredes is a trade chip. He's a prize trade chip, especially with the Red Sox. So, I mean, there's so many guys that need at bats because Payne is gonna get his at bats. You're not taking him out, and no one else can play short like him, right? The outfielders need at bats, specifically Zach Cole and Cam Smith. If you're gonna play Hosey at second, I mean, you're not gonna play him every day. He's gonna need his DH days. When he needs his DH days, obviously you're gonna send Jordan on the left. I don't think this team wants to play Isak Paredes at second base. They tried, like we said earlier, they tried it in spring training. They immediately shut it down. They did not like what they saw. I think they would prefer to have him at first. It's a really tough decision there because if you trade Christian Walker, you're not getting anything of value. I think it'd be better just, I mean, I don't really want to get rid of Isak Paredes, but he could probably get you one of those young starting pitchers. Now, again, it's all dependent on Alex Bregman and what he does. Because if they lose out on Alex Bregman, I think that's where they get really aggressive. And it's the same thing with the Dodgers. If they lose out on Kyle Tucker, and they get really aggressive. Another big part of this season is going to be the starting rotation. You have Hunter Brown and a bunch of darts, bunch of shots in the dark. The big one you hope can bounce back is Javier. Javier was obviously great for you in the past, but his last full season in 23, he had a 4.54 ERA. He was not good. And then you got Tommy John. He came back this year, and right off Tommy John didn't look good, but you expect that a little bit. That's one guy you hope can bounce back. You're paying him decent money. Mike Burrows. The Mike Burrows trade, I think, is going to be a good one for us. We have him for 5 or 6 more years left to control. And, Jacob Melton, we gave away in that trade. He seems just too injury prone, and he seemed way overwhelmed at the big league level. He seems like just another guy you put out there that has good defense and nothing else, right? The big one is Anderson Brito, obviously. That's a big lottery ticket. That's a guy with a lot of potential. You're sending him to the Rays. He's probably going to end up being really good. But at the same time, Mike Burrows is also probably going to end up being really good. Mike Burrows last year had a ERA right under 4 with about 93 innings pitched. If you can pick up those innings to about 130, 140 with a sub-4 ERA, you're going to take that every day of the week. He'll probably slot in as your number 2 right behind Hunter Brown. And then you have guys like Jason Alexander. You can't rely on Jason Alexander right now until he proves it again. Obviously, he was great last year and just came out of absolutely nowhere. He's also a guy that has not thrown a lot of innings in his career. So let's say he does come back and he starts off good. Well, what are you going to do when he gets to that inning plateau? He starts to struggle. He gets hurt. Well, then you're screwed again. So he's not really a guy I think you can trust. But Nate Pearson is a guy, it's the same thing. He has no innings pedigree, even if he does start off good, which I think he can. That guy has really good stuff. You get him in this Astros pitching lab. But even then, you get him later in the year, innings start racking up. His arm's not used to this, especially because he hasn't been a starter since he debuted in, 2020? So I think it's going to be really tough. You got guys that their arms aren't built up. I mean, Christian Javier also, he's been a guy that you've seen him go a lot of innings in the past, but his arm isn't built up. Mike Burrow's arm isn't built up. Wesneski and Blanco could be guys that come back from injury, but with the way this team's training staff is, you don't think those guys are going to come back this year. And if they do, it's going to be in September, August, September. And by then, I mean, will they be able to get back to themselves in enough time to get us into a playoff spot if we're even still competing at the time? You know, you also have Ryan Weiss. I think that's an interesting one. He has good stuff. Did good in the KBO. You bring him here, see what you can do with him. I this team, I don't think they want Colton Gordon getting the same amount of innings that he got last year. He's just not very good. Soft tossing lefty, gets hit around a lot. Doesn't have the way he has decent command, but I mean he's not a guy you want to trust. And the bullpen. I think the bullpen is going to be great. You obviously you're getting Hader back. You still have Abreu, and you know it's kind of scary with Abreu because he got that little shot at the end of the year to be the closer for when Hader went down and he did not look good, and you kind of worry about it a little bit because Hader had that injury when dropping his arm slot. It's very common. It happens to pitchers when they change their arm slot, they get injuries. Happened to Hader this year, and if that happens again, and Brian Abreu has to go back into the closer role, and he struggles again, I mean, you're screwed. But that's really the only time you've seen Josh Hader get hurt in the last few years because Josh Hader has been an Iron Man. Oh, I wouldn't say an Iron Man, but he's been reliable. And you know what you're going to get from Hader. You know what you're going to get from Brave. He's in the setup role. Brave's another guy that just never gets hurt. Brian King, another year of development. He looked really good last year. Bennett Sousa looked really good last year. Ogre looked really good last year. Um, there's probably guys I'm forgetting. But also some of these guys like, Pearson, Weiss, let's say these guys don't make the rotation. They're gonna go into the bullpen. Pearson, we're probably gonna turn him into a star reliever, right? If he doesn't become a good starter. The only thing you worry about Pearson is those innings. I think we're gonna turn him into something good. But I mean the bullpen looks really solid. And it's the Astros. They're always gonna find random guys to come up and make an impact. But it's also weird. The bullpen's weird. Because you could have a guy one year, like Brian King this year was really good. Next year, he could just randomly be really bad. Reliever ERA is very. Hader's also one of those guys that has one good year, 1 year. But I think the bullpen's in good shape. I don't think the lineup is as bad a shape as people make it out to seem. I think it all depends also how are Christian Walker and Yainer Diaz gonna bounce back. I mean, those are two guys going into last year where you're like, okay, well, Crawford boxes, Christian Walker could hit home runs in the mid 30s, maybe the 40s. Yair Diaz, if we can get a little bit of power back, get an 800 OPS catcher, we didn't get any of that. If those guys can bounce back, I mean, you're going to be fine, especially also Jordan. I think Jordan, as long as he's healthy, he's fine. You don't expect Jordan to not be great, right? Last year, he had a 7 OPS in the mid 700s, dealt with his wrist injury. I think he's going to be fine. But, this is the team. I think it's still a playoff team. I don't know if it's a World Series team. I don't think the pitching's there. You probably need another bat. But I think this is definitely a playoff team. And, everybody knows you just got to get in. Anything can happen. There's still a lot of work to be done. Still a lot of decisions to be made. These decisions are going to take time. Like the Christian Walker thing won't happen till around spring training. All these things, like all the free agents need to sign. It's going to take time. This is nowhere near, I think, the team for 2020, or at least on the offensive side. I don't think this is nowhere near the team that we're going to be rolling out there opening day. But Dana Brown, Joe Espada, they're not going to be taking chances this year. They're going to be playing their best team no matter what. They're lame ducks this year. They're fighting for contract extensions. And I hope we give it to them. I really like them in these positions. But only time will tell what happens with this team. And, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.